Welcome everybody. We're at our Where the Rubber Meets the Road. This is Where the Rubber Meets the Road this week, point 2.0 or 2.0 or whatever. We've done this once before and had a little bit of a mishap and lost all of our recording, so got back together and we're going to do this again. So we got Sam with us this morning, and so I just wanted you to know that this is Where the Rubber Meets the Road part take 2, right? And so we're going to go over all this over again. We lost our first recording due to my mistake, and so we admit it. There it is. It's out. It's done. It's over with. Nothing more we can do about it now, is there? Mm-hmm. So here we are. We've been talking about Nehemiah on Sunday mornings, and would love to take the opportunity to invite you to either be a part of what we do on Sunday mornings at 10:30, or if you want, come on down to the Celebration Center here in Wautoma, Route 2173, right at the very end of the strip, and be a part of what we do. Morning worship starts at 10:30. Love to have you be on this journey with us. And if you get here around 10, Sam will already have the coffee on for us. We've been talking about coffee already this morning, so here it is. And yeah, we'll get some fresh stuff in so we can make some good stuff. How's that sound? Good. Love coffee on Sunday morning. Love coffee every morning, to be honest with you. So anyway, we're talking about Nehemiah and going through the book of Nehemiah, and I have been trying to come from the point of view of the people. The book of Nehemiah is written like a memoir. Chapters 1 through 5, I believe, are Nehemiah's writings, either out of a book that he's written, a journal, diary, if you will. So Nehemiah's talking in that point. So it's all his point of view. But I'm very much interested in the people's point of view, because that's who he's motivating. He getting this wall built. How is it working? Because even he is the motivator, but the people are the builders. They're the ones getting the job done. And we need to take a look at their attitude, their willingness, their abilities, gifts. We're taking a look at all that kind of stuff, because they're the ones that are building the wall. And we're liking that into the church, because preachers preach, they lead, they'll jump in and help do some of the work, but ultimately, it's the people who build the church. In any church, it's they're the laborers. They're the ones that bring the multiplicity of talent to the workforce, and everything is done. So their attitude, their talents, their abilities, their time, they're the ones that can actually make or break it. A leader can come in and try to give the greatest amount of leadership that he wants, but if the people don't buy into that leadership, it doesn't matter, right? So you were telling us that in a previous conversation that we had, the things about Nehemiah that grabbed you. You said he had some, I don't think attributes was the word, but I think that's a synonym. So let's start there. You had some things about Nehemiah that amazed you, qualities. Go back over that with us.
Well, I find it's interesting now that being here with Eric to discuss and study Nehemiah, because in my past life, I don't remember in my memory, I don't remember too much of Nehemiah ever being in sermons or studies that I was ever involved with. So it's been a little bit on the fresh side to do this. And looking at Nehemiah in his position with the king as a cupbearer, I see a man that he was very interesting in the fact that he was a real person.
Okay.
He didn't appear to be a puppet of the king. He wasn't in there to try to, as the phrase go, to kiss up for favor. He was put there because of his obvious integrity that was shown to the king, that thought this man would be good for that job.
Okay, so let's talk about the two sides there. He got the king to buy into what was, well, I shouldn't say buy in,
No.
because his heart was breaking,
Yes.
and he had enough of a relationship with the king that mattered to the king. So it says the king is a real person.
Yes.
Okay, and the king really cared about the people who were around him. And let's face it, Nehemiah is pretty important. He just isn't standing there holding a cup, although I've placed it that way a couple of times. But this is the guy that is actually putting his life on the line for the king, because before the king gets it, he has to taste it and see if he dies before he'll serve it to the king, because of being poisoned and all that other kind of stuff. So daily, this guy puts his life on the line for the king. I think the king appreciates that. I think that's one of the reasons why there's a relationship there with what's going on. Okay, so the king buys it. Again, there's that phrase, but I don't want to say buys into it, but because he has a relationship with it, God uses that to get Nehemiah what he's after.
Now, look at Nehemiah a little bit, is what we were speaking about.
Yeah.
That Nehemiah was in the presence of this king in the position the king wanted him in,
Right.
to protect him.
Yeah, he's in the court.
And yet he was not there trying to manipulate anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came in, and the king recognized that he wasn't having a good day, you might say.
Yeah, it's the beginning of chapter 2.
Yeah.
Sure.
What I noticed was that Nehemiah was a real person at that point, and wasn't afraid to be vulnerable and let the king see what was really, to see who he really was.
That's a good point. You think we have a problem with being vulnerable today?
Absolutely.
What, in your mind, because I want your opinion, obviously opinions can be highly varied here, what keeps people, in your opinion, from being vulnerable?
That's a big topic.
It is huge. It is huge. There are probably as many different reasons as there are people.
They're insecure, and they don't want to, the fragile little opinion they have of themselves, they don't want it destroyed because they have nothing left, because of the way their unhealthiness as a person in the emotional area. It takes strength to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. It's true. That's true.
It takes strength, and you, in one sense, it's important who you're vulnerable to, and yet on the other side, if you cover that up, then you become, I can't, let me see what I, then you become, that's when you put your mask on, if you think you're in a place where it might not be safe to be vulnerable, and you become an unreal person. Because if something is really bothering you, like Nehemiah, and you got a load on you just it's on you. Really, you don't care who sees it.
That brings we're talking to people, and they're listening in on our conversation, so I'm going to ask this for that reason. This isn't just for me. Is there a difference in your world between a wall and a mask? Can you see why I asked that question? Because I can be myself, but if I don't want to let you in, I'm being myself. I can just build a wall, keep you on the other side of it. Sorry, I'm being myself, but I'm not going to let you in. And I can see that being different than a mask. But a mask means I'm going to continue to try to operate around you, and I'm going to be something different than what I want to appear to be, something different than what I am, so that you can't get in here. Would that be about right?
Well, a wall is a boundary. A mask is deception.
That's good. That's good. That's good. And therein lies the difference. Yeah.
Yes, a mask is deceptive. And when I'm with people, and I realize it's somebody, and I have said this a number of times to other people, I'll meet somebody or I know somebody, and I have this strong desire. I'd like to go over to them and shake them, and shake them.
I didn't know where you were getting ready to go. I'd like to go over to them and I'm thinking,
and
give them a hug, help them out. No, you want to shake them.
Look
Okay.
them in the face and say, when are you going to get real?
Yeah.
Because you're not real.
It frustrates you then to see people who aren't real.
Yes, very, very much
Okay.
so. Because they're missing their life.
Yeah.
They're covering over who they are. And then when you see people that are, and of course, the mask isn't to protect them. They're trying to manipulate you. There's where the deception comes in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, it's a difference if the person would say, I'm not having a good day, or something really bothering me. I don't wish to talk to you right now, or whatever it is you do. That's
the wall.
That's the wall. Yes.
That's the wall. You're not getting any further than this. I'm protecting myself.
Yes.
For whatever reasons, right or wrong. A lot of times it can be the wrong reason, but
And it can be the right reason.
And it can be the right reason.
It might be a person that you don't trust to talk to.
Right.
They see your feelings.
So that's very much a right reason.
They see your feelings on your face or whatever you're going through, and you realize that they're not the one you want to.
That's interesting you say it, because that's right where we are with Nehemiah.
Yes.
King sees a look on his face. I want to get further into this. I haven't really gotten good. When I've read up on commentaries, I haven't gotten good answers, I don't think, for the reason of the interpretation that the king would say, well, I can see you're not sick.
Yes.
You know, I'm like, that is such a odd, a person's countenance is down or whatever. Why would he say, well, I can see it's that you're not sick? But anyway, that's the king's. But Nehemiah builds no wall between him and the king, and flat out says what's on his mind.
All right, I'll give an illustration of what we're talking about.
Okay.
And you've heard, I have been accused of, I said, Sam, you can't hide anything. It's on your face.
Okay.
And you know what?
I don't think that's a bad thing, but
That's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing. Sure.
I
Sure.
had a time once a number of years ago that I was put in a situation that counteracted one of my promises that I made to myself that I would never do again.
Okay.
And I was appropriately confronted that somebody wanted me to change that. They didn't know that, but they wanted me to do something. And it knocked me for an awful loop. And I went home. I told them I wouldn't give them an answer. And I went home, and my wife looked at me and said, Sam, what's wrong? And I didn't care. I mean, it didn't bother me at all. And so she said, well, you look terrible. What's wrong?
Nice thing to hear from your wife. And you look awful.
You know what? It's a very good thing. Very, very
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good thing.
yeah.
And we sat down, and I just broke down and started crying. And because it was that it was a crossroads right there. that I had to make a decision.
Make a decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was glad that I had a helpmate like that. So in what Nehemiah did like that, I'm sure it was a positive thing that the king saw that, because he had something on him that was from God.
There's where I was getting ready to go. Yeah, this is a God thing going on.
It was a God thing.
Yeah.
And he went in there, and he wasn't in a place to tell the king what was wrong.
Nope.
Because that would have been probably out of place in that culture. But when the king noticed it and said unto inquire about that, there's the advantage of letting the risk take place.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he'd have put a mask on, try to cover that over, and try to act like nothing was wrong.
Or put a mask on and try to manipulate the king.
Yes.
There's another side to it.
Put a mask on and make it look like he had, something other than sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Try to maybe get recognized a bit. If he'd have had, again, go back to what I said earlier about what's your motive.
Mm-hmm.
If he would have been in there with any kind of a mask on, be it one that had, maybe if he thought it had a good side, but if his motive wasn't right, then it's all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in there, he was himself, he was vulnerable to the king. The king said to him what was wrong, and he recognized the king in respect. He said, if it be agreeable to you, I'll tell you. And put yourself in that place, in the presence of a king, and you stayed the real person that you were.
Okay, so now let's travel down the end of the line. And so he was given authority, he was given building materials, and he was given military to give him safe passage. The king all of a sudden elevated this guy from cupbearer to a leader. I'm sending you back, and I'm deeming you to have leadership over this project. But now, so he has to now then go from being the humble person, the king, and only with a scrip of paper, because he gave him a letter, goes back to Jerusalem. And now how does he say to people that he does not know, I'm your leader? And the people have to make a decision to go, yes, we will follow you. How do you make that kind of a transition?
Well, I can quote a poem.
Go ahead. Just do it loud enough so everybody can hear.
I think it was Henry. No. It was the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, I believe. If I'm wrong, we can.
Okay, but the poem is If by Rudyard Kipling.
And he had a phrase in there, if you can, and it's just from the came to me right now, he said about if you can walk with kings, and that was a little more, and not lose a common touch.
Walk with kings, but not lose a common touch.
I wish I had the poem in front of me.
Sure. We can see if we can look it up, and we'll talk to our producer about that.
but he got elevated in his position. But he was still Nehemiah.
Yeah. Okay. And that is what God used, was his consistency of who he was. I mean, the temptation, in fact, I think the temptation goes even further, and it becomes an accusation in chapter 4. Maybe it's before chapter 4. When he comes back into the land, and it might be at the end of chapter 2, and they look at him and go, well, are you setting yourself up to be a ruler? Are you taking authority away from the king? You come back in here, but does the king really know what you're doing? You're trying to steal a kingdom, aren't you? These are accusations that are being made. But the king's the one who gave him the letter and said, go do this. And so,
and in one sense, the king did set him up because this was his land, not the king's land. This was his city, not the king's city.
and it could have
Yet in recognizing what the whole seeing the big picture again, like we spoke before, he saw the big picture and saw that the king was on his side, not against him.
So don't kick the horse.
Don't kick the gift horse in the mouth. No.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at the people, and the people have to end up making a decision to go, he's right, let's follow this guy. And they had to do it through Sanballat, Tobias, and I can't think of the other guy's name, standing with a Sumerian army across from them going, if you do this, we'll come at you. Well, do we look at the guy who has an army and fear him, or do we listen to this guy who doesn't have an army and we follow him? Which one are we going to do? People could have gotten really scared and done that. I mean, here we are. Oh boy, you ready for this? Oh, I'm about ready to pull this out, and this is a perfect example. Here we are in our current culture talking about the masks, and we've got certain pastors that are going, look, you're in here, we don't mind if you wear one, we also don't mind if you don't, we're not of that culture. And then we have others that are standing on the other side that are saying, you can't do that. Or some people will call the police on you. Or, and here we are in our current culture, and then people have been afraid, and they're not necessarily following the guys who are saying, follow me, let's do this way, but rather the ones that are saying, we can't get together, so you know what, let's not, and the churches are still closed. People's choice. And we're trying to figure out, how do we get people and draw them in, Here we are in this culture. We're really not any different than what Nehemiah was facing.
In what sense is it similar?
It's very, very, very similar. There might be a few things that are a little different there, but basically people saying, come on, let's go, like me, it's time to build a church, let's go. And other people going, yeah, but those people over there have an army and laws that say that we shouldn't, so we're gonna follow them. Maybe that should speak to, how do we choose leaders? And you know what? I'm going to hold up right there, and let's leave this for a second segment. And I want to throw at you the question, because you come from a very unique perspective. What made you choose? What were the qualities that you saw that made you choose to be with us here at the Journey, as opposed to what you have been through in the past? So we'll cover that next time. And because I see that all of a sudden, I never saw this before, just right in this conversation, the people looking at Nehemiah to choose. So maybe we can find a few things in the qualities that you look for might be the same things that we find in Nehemiah. I don't know. We'll explore that. So this will wrap it up for us for this segment of Where the Rubber Meets the Road. We're going to talk to Sam in the next segment about the kind of leader that people will follow, and maybe what he was looking for. Maybe he wasn't even looking for it. We'll save that for the next time. Anyway, join us for the next conversation, and thank you for being with us today on Where the Rubber Meets the Road.